I'm Dr. Susan McMahon. I'm a professor in the psychology department at DePaul University. I'm interested in school-based intervention and evaluation, promoting positive outcomes among at-risk youth, and reducing negative outcomes. So I'm very interested in looking at the ecological picture. So what's going on in youth lives? And we can think about Bronfenbrenner's ecological model, where we look at the community level influences, we can look at school level influences, we can look at family and home influences, and how all of those things interact to influence youth. I'm also interested in improving systems, and I focus particularly on schools as a setting where we can make a difference, and it can be pretty exciting to both try to better understand the issues that are going on, as well as trying to make a change in terms of school policy, in terms of the experience of students, to make it a better learning environment for students, and to make it a better working environment for teachers. So my research has spanned several different areas, including violence prevention and school transitions, students with disabilities, classroom management, as well as teacher victimization. So I have a number of different interests and projects that I've been working on, and sort of the most recent project that I've been working on involves teacher victimization. I was part of an APA task force, and we were charged with trying to better assess the situation for teachers. And it turns out we know that there's very few studies in this area, and when we did a national survey with about 3,000 teachers, we found that about 80% of teachers have been victimized in the current or past year. So the problem is huge. And it's interesting because we generally have only thought about violence from a student perspective, or what's happening with students. But when you look at the larger ecology of the school, of course teachers are going to be victimized. So this is like a new area that really needs a lot of development, and it contributes to, sort of turnover with teachers and all kinds of challenges in terms of the teacher-student relationship. In terms of teaching, I teach the thesis seminar and the dissertation seminar at the graduate level, and both are involved in helping students to both conceptualize their research, make progress, get feedback from their peers as well as myself, promote their professional development, and help them navigate through various hurdles and challenges and processes throughout the program. And I also have a very big interest in program evaluation, have taught that at the graduate level, and I've taught advanced courses in community psychology at the undergraduate level. So in sum, I've focused on school-based intervention and evaluation, and my research has focused on topics that are very central in community psychology, as well as mentoring and professional development among graduate students.
What are your values and how do they influence your work?
We have so many problems to address: violence, poverty, discrimination, trauma, stress, and I think that community psychology has a great framework to try to better understand and address these problems. And my values are very consistent with those in community psychology in terms of hard work, prevention, empowerment, intervention, and social justice. The choices that I make regarding my research are guided by my values. So I focus on youth because I think that we have sort of the greatest possibility for change, and I've focused on schools because we have access to most underserved at-risk youth, and we have a lot of potential for systemic change. So I think community psychology has so much to offer, and I am delighted to be able to use my values to guide my work.
What are your near and long-term goals?
So I'm interested in creating positive change, and so every area that I work in, I attempt to do that. So if I think about the three main categories of work that I'm doing are in teaching, research, and service. So in terms of teaching, I'm very interested in trying to find the right balance between supporting students as well as challenging them and guiding their professional development and their skill development so that they can be, get out of their education all that they want to. In terms of research, I am interested in projects that will make a difference and lead to systemic change, as well as have positive influences on individuals. And in terms of service, I'm always sort of striving to be able to make those contributions, whether it be to the university, to my department I serve, or my community. I am interested in taking leadership roles, and so, for example, in the department, I'm currently serving as department chair, and I've had a lot of opportunities to, I think, create some policy changes that have led to positive outcomes for students, particularly related to funding, providing mini grants for students. I'm hoping that we can continue that. In terms of the field of community psychology, I belong to Society for Community Research and Action, and I've played several leadership roles within the field. So I've been chair of the Council of Education Programs, as well as regional network coordinator. And being involved in these roles enables me to kind of, I think, make contributions that are consistent with my values and lead to positive change.
What expectations do you have for your TAs and GAs?
I generally don't have TAs because I primarily teach smaller graduate level courses, as well as the undergraduate courses that I have taught have been service learning, and they've tended to be smaller courses. So I would focus more on my GAs. And my GAs are an integral part of my team, my research team, and so they're involved in all aspects of the research. And so whether we're working on developing measures, whether we're reviewing the literature, whether we're preparing for an intervention or implementing an intervention, or going out and evaluating a program, or analyzing the data, or writing up the findings, they're sort of involved in all aspects of the research. And I think that the assistantship is an integral component of graduate student training. So I think that we need to do our best to have meaningful roles and promote skills through those assistantships. And I think it's been, I really enjoy leading a team. I run the team, a weekly lab meeting for about an hour and a half a week. And students kind of are reporting back and generating ideas and providing feedback to one another. And then there's sort of work throughout the week where sometimes they're emailing drafts of things, and then we're talking about it at our research meetings. So I think it's a great training experience for our students.
What are some examples of successful people you have supervised through TAs, GAs?
So I have, my students who worked with me as GAs have tended to be my students, so the students that I've mentored more generally. So it's a very nice fit in terms of the graduate assistantship work and the work that they're sort of, their research interests. So I generally have students select the kind of work that they want to do. So because we're working on a number of projects, and we've been really focusing in the last year or so on writing and publications. And so because we're wrapping up some of these projects, it's like, oh, well, as we're conceptualizing papers, I have students have identified with a certain database or project more than another student. So what we do is we try to craft projects around their interests. And I think this is really good for their professional development, because they're then able to generate and learn about writing publications and develop that skill. It's a very particular skill in terms of academic writing. They're able to get experience presenting at national and international conferences. And the GA work has sort of, I think, nicely fed into their research career goals that will help them sort of move on to whatever positions that they may choose to go into.
What is your approach to mentoring students?
So I really enjoy mentoring students. Typically when I bring on a new student, I tend to be the chair of the thesis and the dissertation, although sometimes when students come in, they conduct their thesis with one person, and then as their interests shift a little bit, they may seek another mentor for a dissertation. That happens occasionally, and that's fine in our program. But when I supervise a thesis or a dissertation, and I begin mentoring students, I like to sort of help them conceptualize what their interests are, where they want to go, and try to identify a project that is both interesting to them as well as doable. So you always have this tension of like, what's a good fit with your interests, and how can you be able to, sort of finish your training in a timely way so that you can accomplish the goals that you want to in graduate school as well as beyond. So once they sort of identify a project, we work together. I think I try to have regular meetings with them, whether that's at some points in the research phase that may be every week, and at other points it may be every 2 weeks. I think that meetings kind of help them crystallize their ideas and create a plan. I think that timelines are really helpful, so I have all my students generate a timeline, and in order for a timeline to be useful, you have to update it regularly. So students are regularly involved in kind of making progress. So I expect that they'll work hard, improve, and generate new ideas. And as I also then give feedback, so for example, working in Word, if they're going to give me an outline, we start with an outline, and then we go towards drafts, and I use track changes and comments to help them sort of move forward in the writing process. I also do a lot of mentoring through the assistantship, and also through my courses in terms of the master's thesis seminar and the professional and the dissertation seminar. So sort of always trying to help them navigate through the program, help them identify not only skills, develop their skills in working through the research and the courses and all of the other steps and hurdles along the way, but also thinking about the future in terms of where they want to go and what might help best prepare them to do that.
What are some examples of successful people you mentored?
Students that I've mentored have gone into a number of different types of positions. For example, some of my students have gone on to academic positions, and I have students that I've played some role in their training and career who are in different kinds of institutions like Johns Hopkins, like National Louis University, and even DePaul University. So I also have students who have taken more community mental health kinds of positions, like at University of Chicago or DePaul. I have other students who have gone more clinical route, like in hospitals out in California. And then I have other students who have worked in more administrative leadership kinds of roles, like being the director of the McMahon Scholars Program, and other students who have research-related kinds of roles in foundations. So it's been a real pleasure to be able to play a small role in student development and sort of watch students grow and bloom in various different kinds of settings to pursue and achieve their goals.
What expectations do you have for theses and dissertations you supervise?
The master's thesis is often one of the first major independent projects that a student works on. So, some students kind of came from other institutions where they have a lot of experience, but that kind of varies. So students are not expected to know everything before they come in, and I think that might be a common fear, at least I see it in my thesis seminar, that it's like we have expectations. We've been working on writing and research for many years as faculty, and along with that expertise develops. So as a novice researcher, I think the primary expectations are to be open to learning, to work hard, to make steady progress, to create a timeline and try to follow it, and to engage in the process in a positive way. So, I think that is pretty universally done at DePaul. I think that students are very excited to engage in their thesis and their dissertation, and it comes with a lot of trials and tribulations. Sometimes it's not such a smooth path, but even when it's bumpy, you sort of learn a lot along the way. And so I expect them to meet regularly with me and to be open to feedback. And it's it's kind of a fun and exciting project to make something your own. And I think by the end, students learn a tremendous amount, and it informs the direction that they move in their careers. And dissertations, I think my expectations are similar. Students tend to be a little bit more independent with their dissertations, and they tend to be a little bit larger and more complex projects, but the process is fairly similar. So it's really a pleasure to work with students on both their theses and their dissertations.
What is the culture of your research lab like?
The culture of my lab is collegial and collaborative. So we tend to be working on projects in a joint way, but there are also, so there are some students that are working on projects together, and then I also have students working on projects independently. So I think it's a nice mix, because if you can hear, there are certain aspects where there's a lot of discussion and idea generation and feedback, and it sort of is generative, and yet it's also nice to have individual projects, because not only can they learn from me, but they can also learn from their peers. So I think it's a good model to have a collaborative kind of environment. I've also collaborated with colleagues, and I find that generally it's collaboration leads to better work. And whether we're talking about collaboration with students, with colleagues, with people in the community, with teachers, with schools, because everybody has something to contribute. So even if you've had very little experience in research, you're still going to have good ideas and be able to influence the direction that we take through the research. So we're primarily working on publications and presentations, and so it's a pretty fun stage to be in right now. We're going to be starting some qualitative work next, and so that's going to be a very collaborative process. My research team has kind of grown, expanded and contracted depending on the nature of the work, the phase of the research, and the work that we have to do. So right now I'm primarily focusing on working with my doctoral students, but as we get into the next phase, we may pull on and have a little bit larger team, which changes the dynamics a little bit, but it's all kind of fun. So.
What kind of research do students in your lab work on?
Students have worked on a variety of projects within my research lab, including intervention, implementation, measurement development, measurement selection, data analysis, qualitative coding, and writing. So there's an array of skills that we're kind of working on, and it depends on the project and where we're at in the phase of the research. We recently, this year, worked on a paper that looked at aggressive and prosocial behavior, and we looked at it longitudinally using multi-level modeling, and we were able to assess various different predictors across time for 4 different time points over 2 years, and it was pretty exciting to be able to be engaged in a collaborative team project on this kind of work, and it just came out. I got the email today. It came out in AJCP, so American Journal of Community Psychology, which is one of the sort of centerpieces of our field in terms of journal outlets. So I have another project that we just recently finished a special issue on, involved the school transition project, and where we looked at students with disabilities that transitioned into 30 schools. And for 2014, we're coming out with a special issue in which each person on our team was able to take the lead on a paper, and it's going to be coming out in the Journal of Prevention and Intervention. So it's a nice example of students being able to have both the collaborative process of working on research and writing through the team, but also being able to showcase their work and their ideas where they really put a lot into it. We've also done a lot of qualitative work, and where we've interviewed teachers and administrators, and the next project that we're working on is going to be involving teacher open-ended responses for about 3,000 teachers in terms of the victimization experiences. So we're going to be engaged in coding and analysis, and that's going to be the project kind of that we're working on for next year. So there's a variety of methods and different kinds of research skills that my students are engaged in. And I think that, you know, in the field of community psychology, it's important to have training and experience in a lot of different methods. We've also used structural equation modeling, actually. So if you think about multi-level modeling, structural equation modeling, longitudinal research, quantitative and qualitative methods. So I think they're all important, and it's nice to be able to provide skills for students in all of those areas. We have so many problems to solve and to address, such as violence, trauma, stress, substance use, all kinds of things. And community psychology provides a great framework for being able to think through these issues, to better understand them, and to address them. So my values have absolutely affected my work. I believe in social justice. I believe in working with underserved populations. I believe in prevention, empowerment. There are so many things that we can do, but we can't just treat the individual and sort of wait till all the problems have happened and then try to help out. We need to change systems. We need to sort of work within systems, but also try to improve systems. So I've chosen to work in schools because I feel like we have a lot of access to underserved populations. And I've chosen to work with youth because I think we can have a larger impact on them. It's sort of like intervening a little bit earlier on. So schools and community psychology, they have a long background together, and I think it's a nice sort of partnership to kind of think about. We also have to think about collaboration is another value of mine. I believe that if we look to both our colleagues, our students, people in the community, parents, teachers, students, they all have something to contribute. And if we work together, we can find better answers to the problems.